Back. We are playing some more cockatrice, or actually we are taking a look at something which you might have deduced from the title, is that there are rumors circulating the Dimir deck. Actually, at the Magic or the Wizards homepage, they have something called Magic Arcana, and they accidentally spoiled the Dimir deck. There's no, at least to the extent of my knowledge, there's no news of what the deck will be called. But this is allegedly this is the alleged deck list. Another thing that I found out was that there are rumors, and perhaps these rumors might be true, that there will be no promo unlocks for the new DLC decks. The reason that people have started these rumors are that I think that some people are starting to get the DLC, the first deck pack with the Boros deck and the Simic deck in New Zealand, and then slowly moving towards Europe and so on. I haven't been able to download it yet. It's not available through Steam, and I see it's not available through Xbox Live in my region, and I'm in Northern Europe. So I can't test it out yet, but still I decided to just inform you. But I won't go through the deck as meticulously as I tend to do, but I'll just show you a few the different cards that's in the deck and tell you how it's different from, or how it's similar and how it's different from the deck that I put together in my deck speculation video. First of all, let's take a look at this artifact, which is pretty awesome. It's a 2-cost blue-black Mask of the Riddles. It gives a creature fear, and when equipped creature deals the combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. So that's pretty nice. You can pair it with one of your discard creatures and get through almost every time, or more or less every time, depending on your opponent. For the creatures, you have the Abyssal Spectre, which is basically a discard spectre, just like a Hypnotic Spectre and the other specters that are around. You have the Barony Vampires, which basically does nothing. It's just a creature, 3-cost, 3/2. You have the Crafty Path Mage, which is a creature that makes another creature with power 2 or less unblockable for 1 turn. This card is just to get your discard creatures in there. For example, just like the Dimir Cut Purse. Yeah, 3-cost, 2/2, and it gives you the ability to, if it gets through to your opponent and does some damage, that player discards a card and you draw a card. Then there's 2 Dimir Guild Mages, just like the other Guild Mages, is a 2-cost, 2/2, and it has 2 abilities, both of which are 4 costs. One draws you a card, or one draws a player a card, and the other makes a player discard a card. Then you have the Harvester of Souls. It's a 6-cost 5/5 with Death Touch, and when another non-token creature dies, you draw a card. So this pretty much buffs, or it works with the theme of card drawing that's in this deck, and you'll see a lot of card drawing and discard cards as a theme of this deck, basically to promote the whole idea of Dimir being brokers of secrets, gaining knowledge and information and stealing that knowledge away from your opponent, in a sense, and that's why the discard and, to a slight degree, the milling is in effect of this in this deck. Ink Fathom Infiltrator is a 2-cost 2/1 that can't block and is unblockable. So this card is there for damage, or to be paired with something like Mask of Riddles or Helm of the Gastlord to be able to do something that works with the theme of this deck. Invisible Stalker, we all know this from Azorius. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed that they put put this card in another deck. Also, because it's really difficult to work around. But at least it's in a deck where it's not getting buffed a a lot. For this card to be efficient, it needs to be able to make your opponent discard or draw you a card. So yeah. Mindless Mass. I put this card in my build as well, along with a lot of the other cards that I've showed already. Basically, it's a 6/6 trample card for 8 mana. It makes, or when it deals combat damage to a player, you may look at the player's hand, and if you do, you may play a non-land card without paying its mana cost. That's pretty awesome, but it's very, very expensive. Moroi or whatever it's called. It's 4 cost 4/4 with flying. That sounds pretty good, except that it deals 1 damage to you at the beginning of your upkeep. Then again, it might be beneficial because it can get in there for 4, and it does have flying. So yeah, it's a rather cheap in the conventional sense 4/4 with flying, but still, it's going to cost you in life total eventually, or with time. Phantom Warrior is another classic. It's a 2/2 unblockable 3 cost. Then you have the Scroll Thief. It's a 3 cost 1/3, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. Shoreline Salvager is a 4 cost 3/3, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, if you control an island, which you will, you may draw a card. Walking Corpse is a 2/2 for 2, basically a Gristle Bear or a Gristle Corpse, as WMG might call it. It doesn't really do anything for the deck. Flight of Fancy is a 4 cost enchantment. Moving on to the enchantments, of course, and when it comes into play, you draw 2 cards, and it gives the enchanted creature flying. Followed Footsteps, we know this already. It copies a creature every turn, or it copies the same creature every turn. Helm of the Gas Lord is a 4 cost aura. It gives blue and black creatures +1/+1. So if it's a blue-black creature, it gives it +2/+2. And blue creatures get, if you deal combat damage to an opponent or deal damage to an opponent, you draw a card. If it's a black creature, that player discards a card. Necromantic Thirst is a card that I consider putting in my Orjov deck speculation video, or deck for the deck speculation video. It's a 4 cost aura, and when the enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you may return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Very nice card, I guess. Agony Warp is a nice card that I didn't know about. I really like it. It's kind of a removal, and it's also kind of a combat trick. It's a 2 cost 1 blue 1 black. It it gives 1 creature -3 -0, and another creature -0 -3. So it's flexible. It can kill off those 3 toughness creatures. It can severely make another creature smaller in combat, or it can do different effects to 2 different creatures. So that makes it very flexible. Very nice card. You have a lot of it in there. I think with the unlock, you can unlock up to 4 of this card. So it's a nice little removal card. Infiltrate is an instant card that makes a target creature unblockable this turn. Decent. It fits with the theme, I guess. Soul Manipulation is the only, as far as I know, counter magic that there's in this deck, and I think that's a shame because blue-black has a lot of counter spells. As you'll see, if you watched my my Dimir deck speculation deck, you see I put a lot of counter spells, especially counter magic that has other effects at the same time, that works with the blue and black conjunctive or conjoined theme of controlling and manipulating and kind of making your opponent suffer for his deeds, kind of theme that they work with. But this one is it has the following abilities: a 3 cost, 1 black, 1 blue, 1 colorless. Choose one or both. Counter target creature spell, and or return target creature card in your graveyard to your hand. There are other ways to there are other cards that does similar things, or other kinds of manipulations and so on, and I think it's a shame they didn't put more of these control-y cards in there, but they didn't. So Whatever. Also, another thing to notice is that there's only 39. Oh, sorry. There's only, let's see. There's not 36. There's 35 cards in the main default deck because four Terramorphic Expanse takes up 4 slots, and there's 21 lands, which I think is significant. 21 lands in the main default deck, except of instead of 20 lands. So that makes the mana curve a little bit better, I would say, or not the mana curve, the mana accessibility a little bit better. Aside from that in the default deck, there's two ribbons of night, 5 cost sorcery, black sorcery, and it deals 4 damage to target creature, and you gain 4 life. If blue was spent to play Ribbon of Nights, draw a card. So here it ties in with the deal about being able to utilize the two different kinds of colors in conjunction to remove, gain life, in a sense leech your opponent's creatures, and gain a card. Very nice card in my opinion. A little expensive though. Okay, let's take a look at the sideboard. And as I said before, there's no news of any promo cards, and there might never be. So I think there's some truth to there not being any promo cards in the deck pack that comes out today and in the future deck packs. At least, at least not from the previous. Uh, what's it called in the previous promo card arrangement. Anyways, the creatures, there are 17 of them. The first one is Ashling, the Extinguisher. It's a 4 cost 4/4, pretty cheap. It's a legendary creature, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose target creature that player controls. He or she sacrifices that creature. That is very powerful, very nice control card. Crafty Pathmage, another one of these. Dimir Cutpurse, another one of these. Ghast Lord of Fugu. I wish there were more. In my deck speculation video, the deck that I put together, I put more of these. I think I put 2 of these in there. It's a very powerful card, and it's very, very beneficial to the main theme of the deck. It's a 5 cost 4/4. It's unblockable, and when it deals combat damage to a player, that player reveals his or her hand, choose a card from it, that player removes that card from game. Very, very powerful. I would definitely have more of these in there. Glen Elendra Leash. I understand why they put it in there, but it is probably one of the weakest leash cards in there. It gives blue creatures +1/+1, black creatures +1/+1. So that means that if it's a blue-black creature, it gives it +2/+2, of course. But it also has flying, and that's its only ability. Not that spectacular, especially compared with the Boros or the leash that's in the Boros deck, or the leash that's in the Rakdos deck, and etc. etc. The leash that's in the Simic deck, for that matter. Grimgrin Corpspawn is a 5 cost 5/5. It enters the battlefield tap and doesn't untap during your untap phase. Sacrifice another creature, untap Grimgrin, and put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever Grimgrin attacks, destroy target creature defending player controls, and then put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's very strong. It's kind of insane, but I don't see why it's in this deck. I would much rather have a blue-black zombie deck with this card in it. Anyways, moving on. Hellcarver Demon is another card which I think is completely idiotic to put in this deck. It's a 6 cost flyer, 6/6, and when it deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice all other permanents you control and discard your hand. Exile the top 6 cards of your library, and you may cast any number of non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. It's not synergetic at all with the rest of the deck, but it is like, if you have it down at this point, you might not have too many cards in hand. If your opponent has successfully gotten rid of a lot of your creatures and other permanents and so on, sure, this might help you out, but then the next turn it wipes your board again, and then so on and so forth. I don't like this card. Whatever. Laquatus Champion is a 6 cost 6/3, and it doesn't fit the theme as either, but it is a very, very nice end game bomb in the sense that when it comes into play, target player loses 6 life. When it leaves play, that player gains 6 life. And you can regenerate it, so it's difficult to get rid of. But this is the kind of creature you want to cast when your opponent is down to 6 life, and this is the only reason you might want to run it, because it deals a lot of damage, which is very difficult to get around in a sense. So when you think you think you're ripe for a comeback, and you're down to a life total of 6 or below, this guy will just fuck your day. All right, next card, Mephidros Vampire is another example of the deck designers wanting to do too many stupid things that doesn't turn out to be synergetic with this deck. It is, I guess, a decent card. It's a 6-cost 3/4 with flying, and each creature you control is a vampire in addition to other creature types, and has whenever this creature deals damage to a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It's a nice way of buffing your side, but I think it's too slow, and I think you need some powerful creatures that are intimidating your opponent's creatures already, and this deck is all about getting in there and drawing your cards, making your opponent discard, and so on. And if you don't have that board position already, you will not get it from this card, I think, unless your opponent is playing really, really bad, or if he's very, very unlucky. Moroi, another one of these. Nemesis of Reason is a very cool card. I put it in my my version of the deck as well. It's a 5-cost 3/7 already there. It's pretty insane. Whenever Nemesis of Reason attacks, defending player puts the top 10 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. It doesn't fit with the themes of the deck, but it does fit with the sub-theme of ridding your opponent of his cards by milling him. But there are not a lot of other mill cards in this deck. There are some, but not a lot. So I think it's kind of weird that they chose to put it in there. I think they just saw what kind of blue-black cards do we have at our disposal. Yeah, let's just go with something that's big and clunky, and don't think about the synergetic effects of the deck. So I guess they didn't want to make the deck too strong, even though this card in itself is very strong, but the synergetic effects are not really there. New Rock Invisimancer is, well, I guess we've seen one of them already, right? Nope. Okay, so there are 2 New Rock Invisimancers, and they are unblockable, 3-cost 2/1s, but when they enter the battlefield, they make another creature unblockable for 1 turn, so that might be very helpful as well. Put it on the Nemesis of Reason and watch your opponent squirm uncomfortably in his seat. Well, if he has his webcam turned on. Royal Assassin, a 3-cost 1/1 that I used to run all the fucking time in different decks, all kinds of decks, because it is so insane. Tap to destroy any tapped creature. Very, very cool card. Very, very cool. It's a great way of really taking care of. It's a great removal card. It's vulnerable as hell, but as long as you have it down, and you have that 1 turn to make it to get around the summoning sickness, this card will destroy your opponent. Make it so that he doesn't want to play with you. He doesn't want to attack you in any way. He thinks twice about using his tap abilities on his creatures and so on. Sangromancer is a great card, but again, why the vampire sub-theme of this deck? I don't understand it. 4-cost 3/3 with flying. When a creature an opponent controls is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you may gain 3 life. When an opponent discards a card, you may gain 3 life. Okay, I can see that. I can definitely see the second ability being significant for this deck. So, and it's not that expensive, so fair enough. Unliving Psychopath is crazy, and I can't fault them for putting it in there, because that is a fucking amazing card. It's from the Guild Pack set. It's a zombie assassin. 4-cost 0/4. Pay 1 or several swamps, like for each 1 black mana paid. Unliving Psychopath gets +1/-1 until end of turn. And then you can pay one black and tap it and destroy target creature with power less than Unliving Psychopath's power. Take advantage of that and just destroy your opponent's weenies, and up till a 3 power creature, no problem. That's a very cool removal card as well. Rexio the Risen Deep is a 6-cost 5/8 with Island Warp and Island Walk, not Warp. Island Walk and Swamp Walk. Whenever Rexio the Risen Deep deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery spell from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card would be put into a graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Cool card, definitely. A little expensive, but very cool. Enchantments. This was a card that I didn't know beforehand. I like it a lot. It's 5 cost, and whenever a blue creature comes into play under your control, you may have target player draw a card. Whenever black creature comes into play under your control, you may have target player discard a card. Very nice. It works very well with this deck. Flight of Fancy, another one of these. Followed Footsteps, another one of these. I'm actually very disappointed that there are now 3 decks with this card in it. But it's a good card nonetheless, but I think it shows lack of creativity. 2 more Helm of the Gastlord, and it's a great card, so I can't fault them for putting more of these in there. But one thing that I think is amazing is that they put the Painful Quandary in there. 5 cost, whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player loses 5 life unless he or she discards a card. Wow! Destroy your opponent right there. He needs to cast spells, and it's kind of a mid to late game spell, so when you drop it late game and your opponent's hand is sort of empty, it hurts him a lot to drop those cards just to be able to cast a spell, especially if you just drop it this turn, then the next turn your opponent who sits there with 2 cards in hand, he's been saving them, he depends on both of them being in play or to be cast. He can only choose one of them, or he can choose to lose 5 life per spell. Insanity. Very cool card. One more Agony Warp and a Memory Plunder, an instant 4 cost, either blue or black, any combination you see fit. You may play target instant or sorcery card in an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. I love it. Very cool. Baron Spite is a card that I didn't know beforehand. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by 1 player. That player chooses and sacrifices one of them and return the other to his owner's hand. That's a cool card, and this is exactly the kind of spell that I wanted to have more of in this deck. I want spells that does several things and takes advantage of the black themes, the blue themes as well. So this is a very cool card. Kudos for bringing it into the game. Extract is a very cool card as well. It fits well with the theme. It doesn't do a lot, but the thing that it does is very powerful. Search target player's library for a card and remove that card from the game. Then that player shuffles his or her library for 1 blue mana. Very cool. Glimpse the Unthinkable is the other mill card that's in the deck. Target player puts the top 10 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard for 2 mana, 1 blue, 1 black. So that's the final card in the unlockables. Very cool. But I wish there were more of them, so you could choose to run this deck more mill-like. Anyways, this is the so far unnamed Dimir deck. Very, very cool deck in some senses. In other, I think they put too many blah cards that doesn't do anything for the synergy. I think the Boros deck and the Simic deck had more cards that were significant and work with the themes of the deck, but still enough for this deck to be very strong and powerful. You can definitely, when you trim it down to 60, make a very powerful Dimir deck that's all about taking advantage of your opponent's cards and taking advantage of manipulating your opponent's cards in hands and board state and your own card drawing and so on. So yeah, interesting nonetheless, even though it's quite different from the, in some ways, quite different from the build that I put together. So yeah, looking forward to it, definitely. Hope you liked this video. My name is Multeyemeteor, and later!